Welcome to the Homeschool Show from North Carolinians for Home Education. I'm your host, Matthew McDill. Our goal is to help you homeschool with confidence and joy. We have, again, Rhonda Marshall as our co-host today. Good to see you.
Good to see you, too. Well, again, today we have another special episode with highlights from season 1 of the show. And there's some really great things that we're going to see, I'm sure.
Yeah.
So I can't wait to see this, and I hope you enjoy it.
That's right. And so don't forget that August 1st, we are going to be starting season 2. It's amazing we already have a whole season under our belt.
That's amazing.
So join us August 1st for season 2. But today, just enjoy all of the highlights that we have for you from season 1.
We are going to look at homeschool news. And with homeschool news, we are going to explore the growth of homeschooling within the African American community. And we are also going to talk about the new multicultural liaison positions here at the NCHE. And we're also going to have our homeschool conversations where we get to sit down and listen in to a conversation that Matthew had with Joyce Burgess, who is the founder of the National Black Home Educators. And then we're going to have a homeschool reality moment where a homeschool mom interviews her adorable baby girl and explores what it's like for this little girl to be homeschooled. And then we're going to have a special segment and we'll introduce our new multicultural liaisons and talk about the story of how it all got started.
It's exciting. Looking forward to that part. Okay, thank you. So we're going to start with the news, and we're going to specifically give you 3 interesting statistics about the growth of homeschooling among African American families. So here's the first one, which is a little bit old. It goes back to 2015. The home educated typically score 15 to 30 percentile points above public school students on standardized academic achievement tests. Now that refers to all homeschool students.
Okay.
A 2015 study found Black homeschool students to be scoring 23 to 42 percentile points above Black public school students.
Wow. So
they are doing comparatively way better than their peers.
Yeah. That's
interesting to of course, the conversation would be why, but that's interesting. Next statistic comes from 2019 from the U.S. Department of Education. One nationwide study shows that 41% of homeschool students are Black, Asian, Hispanic, and other non-whites. That was a shocking statistic to me.
And just realizing that that's pre-COVID.
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
Those statistics are probably way,
that's
given
right.
2020, things have probably changed and that number's probably gone up.
Especially based on the next statistic, which shows the huge growth of homeschooling among Black families. In households where respondents identified as Black or African American, the proportion homeschooling increased by 5 times from 3.3% in the spring, and this we're talking about 2020, to 16.1% in the fall.
Yep.
There's no other group that has that size of growth in this time period.
Wow.
So anyway, that's the news on the growth of homeschooling among Black families. The other big news is that North Carolinians for Home Education is trying to respond to that. Yes. We're realizing that the landscape is changing. Our goal is to help all families who are homeschooling do so with confidence and joy. And so our news is this summer, we created 2 new positions on the NCHE board called Multicultural Liaisons. And we asked Tiessen Smack and Luz Velasquez to serve in these positions to help us reach ethnic minorities and multicultural families. And so later in the program, we're going to talk more about who you guys are and how you came to these positions and what we're going to do to help them.
That's awesome. And that really kind of helps us go into the conversation that you got to have with Joyce Burgess, who is the founder of the NBHE, the National Black Home Educators. And at the conference, the Homeschool Leaders Conference, right, the HSLDA, the Homeschool Legal Defense Association had. You got to talk with her, and she shared why she believed more Black families are homeschooling
That's
and
right.
what she thought those needs were. So we're going to listen in that conversation and then be able to talk about why those numbers grew in 2020 and what that looks like now.
Right. Let's
All right.
check it out. Why do you believe that there's such a faster rate of growth among Black homeschoolers, Black families choosing to homeschool right now?
Well, with the pandemic and this global situation we're in, I think it just revealed the weaknesses that's in our traditional system anyway. One thing about Black families, I learned from my grandparents, from my mom, is we're going to do what we need to do to make sure that our children are safe and secure.
Okay.
And so this pandemic offered Black parents an opportunity to say, you know what, I can't navigate this virtual setting. And then some said, okay, I'm doing good with this virtual setting. May as well keep them at home. I'm at home anyway. And then there's so much bullying going around in your local regular schools. Parents, and especially young parents between the age of 25 and 35, they're like, you know what, we're just going to stay home, because a lot of them are entrepreneurs anyway. They're working remote from home. And so those are some of the reasons that they've said they're just going to not homeschool. I mean, not send their children to your regular schools. They're just going to homeschool. So there are just many, many reasons that Black parents, with the virtual setting, some can do it, some can't. Children feeling safe, and of course, I've seen a lot of conversations about, shall we mask, shall we not mask? And
Sure.
so lots of those conversations. But I think that the tapestry that's running through all of the decisions and the choices is parents want their children to feel safe and secure, and they want stability for their children. And homeschooling offers that stability.
Are there unique needs in African American community homeschoolers, or are they mainly shared with the rest of the homeschool community?
It's interesting that you asked that, because I'm thinking about unique needs. I remember during the 90s when I first started homeschooling, and a lot of the support groups and some of the other homeschool moms in the conferences, we couldn't find curriculum, right? So we ended up creating our own. So I'm talking about we, the entire, all homeschoolers.
Yeah.
We couldn't find curriculum. We couldn't be a part of the sports team. So we started our own sports groups. We couldn't be a part of anything else that we wanted to do. So as homeschoolers, we started our own.
Yeah.
And so as Black Americans, I don't necessarily think that the need is any different, other than now Black history doesn't just happen in February. We celebrate Black history every day because we're still making history. And so I think that's a big challenge. For some single moms who have chosen to do this, finances may be a challenge, but there are many, many groups out there. Homeschooling is so sophisticated now with everything that's online, all of the support groups out there, co-ops now, until even a single mom should not feel that she can't homeschool because she has all of the support. 30-something years ago, 20-something years ago, I didn't have that. I had one friend, well, shall I say 2, maybe 3 friends that came along and took me under their wing and said, Joyce, we're going to help you through this, and I'm grateful today for those friends. So I don't think the needs are any different than what it was when we all first started. Curriculum, and we're doing that as an organization. Finances is really not that expensive to do it, but they still see it as a challenge. And then I think one of the biggest challenges for me when I first started homeschooling was to tell my mom and dad and my husband's parents that we were going to do this, because it's like, you guys are crazy. We fought hard to become a part, an equal part of this educational system. And now you're telling me that you're going to not do this? You're going to teach your children? You don't even have a college degree.
Yeah.
How are you going to do this? So that was a big challenge for me. But now that has been dismissed, so to speak, because I have grandparents who are homeschooling, grandparents who are trying to get the information so that they can tell their sons and daughters, hey, you may want to consider homeschooling your child. So there are not, in my opinion, a whole lot of challenges other than if we come to a conference. You don't really see a lot of black and brown faces that are speaking at these conferences or in the exhibit halls. And so that's why the National Black Home Educators is, we have a speakers recommended list. We have information for vendor halls. We have resources. We have book lists for girls and boys. And like I said, it's not just for African Americans. It's just bringing the black experience, the black cultural harmony
To the whole
to the
community.
whole community of homeschoolers.
That's great. That was great.
That was Joyce Burgess, the founder of the National Black Home Educators. And you can find out more about their organization and resources at www.nbhe.net.
I really loved talking with Joyce.
Yeah.
You can see what a pleasant, wonderful person she is. It was so insightful. So I'm really curious, though, what you thought about that. What stuck out to you?
I thought it was great, obviously. I'm so grateful for people like Joyce who kind of paved the way and pioneered before it was popular, before it was cool. And so I'm definitely grateful for that and for her organization. One of the things that really stuck out to me was when she mentioned some of the reasons she believed African Americans are homeschooling. She stated stability, safety, bullying. And I think it's important to note that those are really universal reasons why anybody homeschools.
Right.
It's not black specific, white specific, Hispanic, specific, which I think is important because it just reminds us that we're all parents and we all just want to do what's best for our kids. And we all just want to exercise our God-given authority, to make the best decisions for our kids. And so I really love that she said that.
Yeah, that's great. So most reasons are very similar. Do you think there are some specific either reasons or needs that black families would have that are different, unique?
Yeah, absolutely. And she mentioned that also. One of those unique needs being the fact that, earlier you mentioned that statistic being 41% of non-white, and that was before that expansive growth in 2020. And yet, that's really not the experience.
That's right.
If you go to many of the mainstream homeschool conferences, or if you look at the curriculum, it's all very, it seems as if the homeschool world is reserved for white families. And so the only way a non-white family can get the experience of not being the only one in the room or their children not represented in books is to do what Joyce Burgess did. And that's to go and create these exclusive groups for African American families or other families, which is great because it meets that need, but it doesn't really change the mainstream homeschool, which again leaves the rest of us families who are trying to navigate this mainstream homeschool world just kind of underrepresented.
Right.
Yeah. So.
And you wrote a blog post for the NCHE blog, right?
Yeah.
About that experience where you had that experience going to the conference, right?
Absolutely.
Tell us about that.
And so I called it From the Diary of a Black Homeschool Mom.
Yeah.
And it really is just that experience, where I went to the conference, had a great time, met great people. But every time you walk into the room, all of these different workshops, I'm like the only black person in the room, the only family. You're just kind of looking around like, is there anybody, who looks like me? Is there anybody out here? And then you get that joy when you look over and you see that one other family. And you're really like, hey, I see you, and it's true. We just kind of wave at each other like, I see you, keep on pushing. And you just kind of keep going. And that is just that need to get to the point where we're just not always the only
Right.
one. Yeah.
And that's our goal.
Yeah.
I mean, our goal, as you've expressed, as Joyce expressed, isn't to isolate.
No.
Right? And we're going to talk a lot more about that. And so I want to thank you for having the courage and the obedience. I think you feel like the Lord's called you to help us change it.
Yeah.
Change the experience, and for us to not have sections of homeschool community.
Absolutely.
And so that's why we're here. That's what we want to do. So before we get into that, I really want us to get a lot more into that. We're going to take this homeschool reality moment break.
Yes.
And so we have a homeschool mom who is interviewing her daughter about homeschooling. So let's see what she had to say about it.
So I'm going to interview Nova today. And Nova, can you please tell us, how do you like being homeschooled? Yeah? Okay, what would you say the best part of your day is? Yeah, that sounds like a lot of fun. Do you like being home with your brother and sister all day? Yeah. Okay. Would you have any encouragement for any families thinking about homeschooling, maybe? Any bits of advice? Ooh, okay. Well, thank you for your time. We appreciate it. Well, can you tell the people bye-bye? Can you say bye-bye?
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
All right, so our faithful listeners would know that we have already shown this interview before. But if you recognize the voice who's interviewing, that's T-Essence, yes. Right? And so that's her daughter, Nova. And we just love that interview. And since you were on the show, I thought we got to show that again.
Yeah.
So you can show off how cute your baby is.
Cute. She is just the bride of our house right now.
Yeah,
she's just so funny.
Adorable.
So much
that's
personality.
Awesome. I love it. Okay, so now we're going to get back to discussing how we created these multicultural liaison roles, and that T-Essence and Luz, another person that we want to introduce to you today, we want you to have an opportunity to get to know them. So let's just start off with you. We've already seen one of your kids.
Okay.
Tell us more about your family, your homeschooling experience, and how you came into this, being willing to take this position.
Okay, so I have 3 children, one on the way. A 12-year-old girl, 7th grade, a 4-year-old boy, and little Nova, who is 1. And my husband and I and our children, we live in Salisbury. We've been homeschooling now for about 3 years. My daughter was going into 5th grade. The Lord really put on my heart that, hey, this was the time to do it. And it had never been done in my family before. No one within my community, so it was kind of like, all right, God, let's do this. And so that's kind of our homeschool experience. But it's been great. We've loved it. We went to the conference 2019 before it all started. I met a Black lady there. We made that, hey, eye contact, got into her co-op, and it's just been a blessing ever since then. Yeah. And how I just kind of got here, it was not my intention at all. Honestly, again, because I am Black and I do love being Black, but I'm all about unity as well. I kind of find myself sometimes in a weird place of advocating but not fighting and that sort of thing. So this really goes outside of my box, but I know that God told me to do this, to stand up, to be a voice, and to be a voice for unity. And so that's why I'm here.
That's great.
Yeah.
And her partner in multicultural service is Luz Velasquez.
Yes.
And we're going to tell how she became a part of the story, but she isn't able to be here with us today, but she sent us a video introducing herself. So let's check that out and get to know Luz.
Hola, buen día, good morning. Yo soy Luz Velázquez. Vivo en Carolina del Norte. I live in North Carolina, and I'm homeschooled. I do homeschool my child since day one. It's been a super experience. It's a super amazing journey. No a challenge, as many people can tell you sometimes. I'm coming from Puerto Rico, but I born in Dominican Republic. Therefore, I'm raising a multicultural child. He's bilingual. He's 8-year-old, but I only have one child, but I feel like I have 5 with him, sometimes 10. And I'm here to tell you, to share with you how amazing and how possible it is to homeschool your child here in North Carolina and in the United States. The organization NCHE is opening their doors for the Hispanic community and other community as well. They realized that they were a community that also have the tools basically to where it started when you think that you want to homeschool, especially like if you speak Spanish and you just got to the country and you just decide that you have to homeschool for whatever reason. Most of the websites are in English. NCHE have realized that, and they are opening their doors for us. Therefore, we have formed a Multicultural Liaison, un departamento multicultural, para ayudar a estas otras comunidades, so we can help the other community that is growing, that community that is growing now for homeschooling. It is possible to homeschool. It is possible to homeschool bilingual in a bilingual house, in a bilingual family, or trilingual. It is possible to homeschool here in the United States and keep your culture. You can cope with the country culture and keep your culture, keep your language. It is possible. Therefore, we're here. NCHE en Spanish for you. NCHE en español para ti.
All right, that's Luz. She's fantastic.
She is.
I hope you get to meet her live one day.
Gosh, I love her.
Because she's so much fun.
Yes, she is.
So let's talk about how this happened, because it's really interesting.
Yes, it is.
It really is a way that God worked in our lives. And so the way this started for me is I got an email from Liaisons. I had no idea who she was. I didn't know how to say Liaisons. And I got an email in summer of 2020, I believe. And it was at the height of rioting,
Yep.
Black Lives Matter. I mean, racism was number one search, on Google or whatever. It's just, and the request from Liaisons was, are you guys going to say something about this? About racism, about what's going on? And my answer was, nope, I don't think we are. We just talk about homeschooling,
Yeah.
And so that's what I said. I emailed her back and basically said that. But the more I listened to all the conversations and the more I thought about it, the more I prayed about it, it inserted that seed into my mind, which is how the Lord used it. And then I thought, no, we should. And so then I wrote a blog post, what does racism have to do with homeschooling? And so I wrote her back and I said, okay, I think we are. Will you please read this blog and tell me what you think? How would you change that? And she immediately inputted that. So what was your side of that exchange there?
So it was, like you said, the heat of all of these things. The George Floyd situation had just happened. Hearts were broken. People were angry. And again, I'm in that space where, again, I'm Black, so I share this experience. My heart is broken, but I'm for unity. So, it just puts you in that place of tension. And then the Holy Spirit put on my heart, you guys just send out your regular email like you always do. I read it. And as I'm reading it, the Holy Spirit says, hey, send an email. And I'm like, who, me? I'm not doing that. Yeah. So I wait the next day and it's still in my heart. Send an email. So I'm like, okay. And I think it was like 2 sentences. Like, hey, I love NCHE. You guys are great. Are you going to say something? And you wrote like this long email of all these nice words. That was like, no, not doing it. And then I was kind of like, all right, God, what's that about? And prayed for it for a couple of days. And as I'm praying and I hear God telling me, no, you need to kind of stay with this, you responded. And it was just like you said, he was working in both of our hearts.
Right.
Where we both realized this is not comfortable. We don't prefer to do this, but God is calling us to do this. And
what I really loved, Liaisons, and what I noticed right away is what you said a minute ago, that you're not fighting, but you're trying to remember the other word you used, but you are, representing or trying to represent this and to think about this, but you're not fighting. And I just
Absolutely.
noticed the spirit of respect and of gentleness, and that's why I was like, this is someone who can really work for this,
Yeah.
you know? And so then we started talking, and I said, can you help us? You know, it couldn't stop with a blog post.
No.
That's what we immediately realized. We had to figure out how to do more. And so that's when we started talking about a Zoom a webinar,
Yeah.
right? And that's when we got Luz involved, and we said, let's make this multicultural.
Absolutely.
And so we had our Zoom, our webinar, and from that, we started getting criticism.
Yeah.
And we worked together to respond to that. And that really just increased, hey, we're on the same page.
Mm-hmm.
We have the same heart. We have the same goal. We're going to be able to do this.
Thanks so much for joining us this week. We'd love to hear from you. Send your questions and feedback to the Homeschool Show at NCHE.com. And also, please help others find the show by subscribing, rating, and leaving a review on Apple Podcast and YouTube. If you think this show would be helpful to your friends and family, please let them know about it. To learn about how to subscribe to our show as a podcast and on YouTube, you can go to nche.com/The Homeschool Show. And don't forget, we'll be starting Season 2 on August 1st.
That's right. And until next week, continue to homeschool with confidence and joy.